Oh yeah, what up? This is my Q&A for this January 29th, 2009, and definitely gotta say, obviously you probably already noticed by if you clicked on this video, but I gotta warn you, this is gonna be a long Q&A video to get through my questions. Got a pretty good amount of them, and the first question is from Instant Classic G1, and he asks, do you think the size of a wrestler really matters? And this question can kind of be answered in a yes-no fashion where it can go either way as far as the question goes. I would say as far as in the mainstream companies of WWE and TNA, and especially WWE, the size of a wrestler really matters as far as the way you want to get utilized in the company. As far as TNA, it doesn't matter as much. WWE, it definitely matters. And as far as WWE, finally we're starting to see wrestlers of some smaller stature actually being pushed and utilized actually better than what you probably would have seen 5 years ago or even back in the 90s. So that's a good thing to see. You see Rey Mysterio get utilized. Evan Bourne, before he got injured, was starting to get a very mega push. Randy Orton won the Royal Rumble. He's not really that big. Chris Jericho, Shawn Michaels, which Shawn Michaels is one of those guys that really started to, help out, or at least help out some smaller guys get into the business with how good he worked back in the mid 90s, and he was one of the first guys that really broke through as far as in one of the big companies of WWF and WCW back in the day that was not a 6'8", 300-pound muscle build steroid abuser that actually got pushed and actually showcased. And guys of smaller weight and smaller size could actually be main event type wrestlers, and definitely got to give him a lot of credit for that. He was one of the guys that first broke through there and did that. And as far as TNA, like I said, in some senses it matters, but not as much as WWE. And TNA, I would say, if you're real small, if you're someone like, Pele Primo or someone, you're obviously not going to get utilized in TNA or WWE, I would not say. And as far as, Indies, Japan, Ring of Honor, and anything that's non-WWE or TNA, size of a wrestler really doesn't matter. It really pretty much, if you go out there and you can perform to your high abilities and you can perform great in the ring, then it really doesn't matter. Next questions are from ECW Paul Best 69 XD. And these three questions are three non-wrestling related questions. So I definitely encourage, if you want to send any non-wrestling related questions, definitely do it. Whether it's movies, sports, politics, or pretty much anything. If there's any type of questions other than wrestling related questions you want to ask, definitely just send them in. And the first question is, what do you think of the Rob Blagojevich, Bill Richardson, and Al Franken scandals? Now, obviously, two of these questions that he asked are kind of, a little outdated, but I felt like adding them in because they're still kind of a little relevant, especially with this question. Got the whole Blagojevich scandal still kind of going on. He's about to get impeached, but he's one of those guys that's pretty much saying that, he didn't do anything crooked, and you can just look at him and tell that he's a crooked politician. He's just trying to stay face. That's pretty much what he's doing. As far as the Blagojevich scandal, obviously, he definitely was a very corrupt politician, and definitely, he's completely should be indicted and impeached as far as, trying to sell the Senate seat of Barack Obama. Definitely, he's definitely a corrupt politician. As far as the whole Bill Richardson scandal, I would say, that's one of the three of these scandals that really didn't get that much coverage or anything. Got a little coverage, but not that much. As far as the Richardson scandal, not that real big of a scandal, but obviously, he was going to be possibly involved in the Barack Obama administration, but obviously he, for some reason or another, didn't want to get involved, maybe just because some of the appointments in Barack Obama's cabinet that he made, which definitely there's some people in his cabinet that I'm definitely against him being there. It's like, the Rob Emanuels, the Robert Gates still being there, and Hillary Clinton, which obviously you pretty much got, this administration, which is supposed to be all about change, you pretty much got all Clintonites and people left over from the Bush administration in there. So I can see that'd be the main reason why he didn't want to be involved into this administration. Now, as far as the whole Al Franken thing, don't really matter. It didn't really matter about that whole scandal. Obviously, that got blown up to more than what it should have. I know, the whole, voting fraud or anything like that in Minnesota, or the supposed voting fraud, and I didn't really care. Al Franken didn't really view him as good. It's pretty much what I would say is, whenever you got a celebrity running or anyone that's a known person running as far as that's not a politician, people are going to be dumb enough and vote for him. Just look at, California. You got Arnold Schwarzenegger, pretty much the son of a Nazi, running California as far as over there. You got him as the governor. And what is your view on the Israel and terrorist group Hamas conflict? Obviously, this conflict is pretty much over as far as the whole thing that happened in the Gaza Strip, that whole conflict, which definitely I'm glad that's finally over. But the one thing I got to say about this whole Israel and Hamas conflict and everything with the everything with Israel and Palestine, people got to, pretty much the media pretty much just portrays one side of this. They only show the side of Israel, and whatever Israel does, they're right. Now, I'm not saying, I'm supporting Hamas or anything like that, or I'm saying Israel's, completely wrong. But in this case, they were pretty much wrong, because they were, they broke the ceasefire. Pretty much the media's pretty much saying Israel's always right. That's pretty much the way that our government pretty much listens anything Israel does. Whatever they want to do, we pretty much allow them to do anything. And I think that was the thing you didn't get to see good in here. As far as coverage on the media, you pretty much saw it be one-sided, where whatever the other side does is always wrong, and whatever Israel does is always right. That's the only thing I got to say about that. It wasn't, good, media coverage on the whole conflict in Gaza. And even now you got Israel being allowed 17 airstrikes of Pakistan from Barack Obama, which hopefully this doesn't start another war. Possibly, it looks like something could definitely happen as far as Afghanistan and Pakistan. And definitely the one thing we do not want to get involved in is letting Israel attack Iran or letting us attack Iran. Because if there's some other war or something gets started in Iran, that's pretty much going to be the start of World War III if that is allowed to happen. And as far as the next question is, what is your view on the recent government bailouts? As far as all these bailouts that are being given out, and even just yesterday, it was it's already been given that the government has $813 billion of funds for these bailouts. And a lot of these bailouts, some of them make sense, a lot of them don't. I'm really, this is probably one of the very few times, I'm kind of, even though I'm pretty much a liberal, this is one of the cases that I'm not really that much of a liberal on as far as these bailouts go, because I don't think, these bailouts shouldn't be allowed to happen. I think it's going to help. It's not going to help the economy. It's not going to do anything. It's pretty much going to even get her in a deeper hole than what we already are in. And then the next questions are from 111 Clancy 111. Do you think the WWE will give Evan Bourne a title run, and pretty much put in parentheses a ECW title run? Definitely could see Evan Bourne becoming an ECW champion at some point or another. As far as, would he be able to ever become a world champion for the Raw brand or SmackDown brand, the WWE, or world champion? Don't ever see that happen, but definitely an ECW title run. And, if he's over enough, maybe WWE would give him a chance as far as a world title with the SmackDown Raw brand. I just couldn't see it happening. And if they did, they would book him as, pretty much the underdog champion, pretty much like, Rey Mysterio's title run and CM Punk's title run, and the even worse title run than CM Punk, which I didn't think that was possible, which was the Jeff Hardy title run. Then the next question, do you think TNA is getting better or worse or up and down? As far as this, I would say if you would have asked me in the summer, I would have said TNA was getting better. As far as their Impact program, I would always say Impact was at one point up and down. Most of the time it was worse. It was never really getting better, in my opinion. Now, as far as now, and especially the last 3 pay-per-views TNA put on, I would definitely say TNA is getting worse than better, and it's not really going on an up and down slope. You had 2 terrible pay-per-views to end 2008, and then the Genesis pay-per-view beginning of this year in January of this month. You didn't really get that. You got 2 great matches on there, but other than that, it was a piss-poor pay-per-view. It wouldn't be anything I would recommend, obviously, and I would say definitely they are getting worse. Hopefully they improve. They need to improve their pay-per-views, especially this upcoming pay-per-view where you got Devon, Brother Ray, Sting, and Kurt Angle in the main event. That just doesn't seem like, why would you want to do that as a main event? The next question, what wrestling promotion do you think is the best at this moment and has the best wrestlers? Obviously, no one's going to be shocked at what I'm going to say. I'm obviously going to say Ring of Honor has the best product going today. I will say definitely they have the best wrestlers going today as well. I think they have the best wrestling-based product going today, even after Gabe Sapolsky's firing, and I think they are even starting to improve more without Gabe Sapolsky and under Adam Pearce administration as far as his booking. And even now they got a TV deal with HDNet, so it definitely looks like they're starting to grow. But I'll get into the whole HDNet thing in a questioning coming up. So I would say, and as far as wrestlers, they're probably one of the very few promotions that you could say a lot of their mid-card talent, even some of the lower-card talent, could even be viable or make believable as a champion, or even not only a champion, definitely a contender. Next question, what do you think of The Rock as a wrestler and on the mic? As far as The Rock as a wrestler, The Rock is pretty much one of those guys that was an entertainer. He was pretty much like the Hulk Hogan, like John Cena, where he wasn't the greatest in-ring performer, but he was very charismatic. He was great on the mic. And as far as him on the mic, he was one of the best guys on the mic as far as his way he delivered promos and, comedy promos. Just excellent stuff The Rock did. As far as the performer, I thought he was a good performer, not a great in-ring wrestler, but he wasn't really destined or even tried to be a great in-ring performer. He's more or less an entertainer, and he could perform in the ring great with people like, the Austins, Triple H's, The Undertakers, and Kurt Angle, and many others as well. And next question is from King4123. In 1996 through 2001, did you like the in-ring action of WWF and WCW? Or WCW, I mean. As far as the in-ring product, I didn't think either one had a great in-ring product. As far as WWF, I would say, was the superior in-ring product over WCW, especially from 98 up until the closing of WCW. I would say that was definitely the very superior product, and even, not late 97 or even mid 97, or definitely late 97, going up until the end, they were the better in-ring product, and not only the better in-ring product, I thought they were the better, entertainment product as well. WCW at one point, I would say probably 96, 97, they were a good product, but not the greatest product. They only let their cruiserweight talents pretty much go out there and deliver, and other than that, and maybe a couple of U.S. title defenses, you never really saw that much great in-ring action in WCW. It was pretty much, 96 through 98, or even past mid-98, pretty much saw, you saw maybe one or two great cruiserweight matches, maybe a good U.S. title defense, and, the NWO, and that's pretty much it. But I was more of a fan of ECW around that time, so that was the promotion that, I liked as far as, I thought they had the better all-around product as far as in-ring action and just the originality of the product as well. And next question is two questions from ZatchBell2121. Will Mick Foley go heel? This question you asked me right before the Teenage Genesis pay-per-view, and I would say I was like one of the people that definitely thought Mick Foley would have possibly gone heel at the Teenage Genesis pay-per-view. Obviously, they didn't go that route, and he hasn't turned heel yet. I would say at some point or another, they are going to do a swerve. Mick Foley will probably turn on the TNA frontline. He will definitely go heel at some point or another. They'll, pretty much do it in a way where they'll probably start booking the front line maybe to start gaining some offense on the Main Event Mafia. Then Mick Foley will turn heel and join up with the Main Event Mafia, and then he'll kind of have, pretty much being, I guess, the kind of, I don't know what you would call him, GM or whatever he's doing in TNA at this point. He'll kind of, say, now we got control, and they'll do it that way. Then they'll do something with Jim Cornette going against them, trying to overrule him, and the Main Event Mafia will have, some type of, power stroke, and I think that'll probably be some way that they'll go. Next question, do you think Ring of Honor will sign the deal they got? Now, obviously, everyone knows they did sign the deal. I just wanted to add this question in so I can kind of give my thoughts in on Ring of Honor signing their deal that they did with the HDNet. And as far as them being on HDNet, I think it's a good thing. It's going to be one of those TV deals that's not really going to help them as far as, it's not going to hurt them. It's not going to really grow them as an organization. It possibly could be a TV deal, maybe that with, if they, hopefully they stream the episodes, either put it on a stream on their site or upload the full episode on their YouTube channel. That's going to definitely be the one thing, because the HDNet channel, not only, it's not the biggest HD channel, and not that many people have it. And not only that, you have to have an HD TV to see it. So if you don't have, an HD TV, you don't have an HD box, you aren't even able to view it, obviously, unless, after, they finally air it and air the shows, you'll probably have to, download the episode. That's pretty much going to be the route that a lot of people are going to have to view this as. I don't really endorse the whole, download and bring them out their stuff, but as far as their TV show, that's probably going to be the only way that you're going to be able to see it, unless, they go the route, like I said, upload the episodes on their YouTube channel, which they should definitely do it, because there are YouTube partners, and they're allowed to, upload the longest amount of video that they want to, so that would be the route that I think they should go, if they're allowed to. That's if HDNet allows them, and definitely hope it works for them, but I don't think it's going to be anything. It's going to be a dramatic thing for them, but it's going to be one of those things I'm interested to see how they're going to change their shows. Are they just going to, take stuff from their shows, keep doing the shows like they're doing, and kind of do it like ECW did, where, you show clips from each show and kind of combine them in that way and showcase, more of these storylines, and maybe put, one excellent match on the shows, kind of undercard stuff as well, and kind of do it the way ECW did hardcore TV back before they got on TNN. I think that would be kind of the route that I would like them to go on, because obviously they're not going to get, because their DVD sales are pretty much what helps them as far as the companies. I don't think they're going to really change how they're shooting them, but I never know. Obviously, we don't got the full details on when the show is going to be airing on HDNet, or how long the episodes are going to be. Obviously, most likely it's going to be an hour-long episode. I can't see them getting a 2-hour slot on there. It'd be great if they did. Hopefully this does work for them, but for the most people, this is not going to be a dramatic thing, since a lot of people don't even get the network anyway, so a lot of people aren't even able to view it anyway. But hopefully it helps them. Hopefully, from this, maybe they can get on a bigger network at some point down the line. Network I wanted them to get on from day one, as far as a TV deal, I wanted them to get on the Versus network. Hopefully this might lead to them maybe getting on something like that if it gets enough hype from people online that see the show. The next question is from ZofBlades. What is your opinion of Chris Hero? As far as my opinion on Chris Hero, I would say he's kind of more of an entertainment wrestler. He's not really the greatest in-ring performer. I've seen him perform good in the ring. He can go in the ring if he wants to. More or less, he's kind of, more or less the sports entertainment type gimmick or character or anything like that. So he really doesn't try to go out there and perform an excellent match. So I'm not one of those people that think Chris Hero is one of the greatest wrestlers. I mean, he definitely gets that type of buzz. A lot of people say he's like one of their favorite guys on the indie scene, which I wouldn't probably even put him in my top 20. Not saying he's a terrible wrestler, but he's not one of my favorites, though. But he can be entertaining sometimes. Next question is, where do you see the Orton and Vince McMahon storyline going? Will they have a match? Before Orton won the Royal Rumble, I would have definitely said Randy Orton and Vince McMahon was probably going to be the match that was going to be set in stone, or maybe a Shane McMahon versus Randy Orton match at WrestleMania before he won the Royal Rumble. But obviously with him winning the Royal Rumble, he's going to obviously get the WWE title shot and most likely defeat John Cena at WrestleMania 25 and become the new World Heavyweight Champion. Then after that, you might see, a Randy Orton and Vince McMahon match, or a Randy Orton and Shane McMahon match. I think, an Orton and Shane match would be better, but Vince McMahon's one of those guys that, he can go in there and, if he's in there with someone that's a great performer, like a Randy Orton, like a Shawn Michaels, like he did with Austin, and even his match with Hogan from WrestleMania 19, I hated Hogan, don't like Hogan, don't really like Vince as an in-ring performer or anything, but they made that into a believable match, and a match that seemed like it was very good and better than what it should have been. So Vince is one of those guys that, given enough storyline build to it and enough emotion to it, he can make it into being at least a good overall match. Definitely if he's in there with a guy like Orton, I could see it being a good match. It's kind of like, a lot of people would say it's kind of like, this generation's type of, Austin versus McMahon feud with the whole Orton and McMahon's feud that they're doing. Next question, which are about 3 or 4 questions from blagojevich01. What are your thoughts with Randy Orton punting Vince McMahon in the head? I saw it as an awesome for Orton, but but a part of me still thinks it was a desperate attempt at boosting the ratings. Well, nothing's really a desperate attempt to boost the ratings. So obviously, that's going to be a thing you want to look at more. What's going to boost the ratings? And obviously, I don't know if it obviously didn't really boost the ratings that much because Vince McMahon's return, when they did the whole thing with the Randy Orton punting him, that Raw got a 3.9. Then the following week, which you thought might have been maybe one of those very seldom Raws that maybe would get a 4.0 or above a 4 rating, actually slipped down to a 3.6, which is kind of disappointing as far as ratings go, because I thought that would have maybe people, because that whole thing they did at the end of Raw with Orton and Vince was one of those very few times that you're like, I can't wait to see what they do next Monday on Raw. I can't wait to see what they do at the Rumble. And I don't think that many times you can say that a company does that or makes it that interesting where you can't wait to see what they do next. It doesn't happen that often in wrestling nowadays, and it's not desperate. It's somewhat of a desperate attempt for a rating because anything pretty much with Vince McMahon in a feud might garner higher ratings. And Vince McMahon's a talent that or a not really. He's pretty much an on-screen personality that, even if people hate to admit it, which I kind of hate to admit it, but Vince McMahon does kind of equal ratings. Next question, what do you consider your dream match? Mine would be Kurt Angle versus Bret Hart in the Ultimate Submission match. As far as my dream match, I've said this, I think a couple times before, or at least has mentioned it before. My dream match is Bryan Danielson versus Kurt Angle. Would love to see them two against each other. I think it would be an excellent match. The next question, if you could see two tag teams from WWE and Ring of Honor compete against each other, who would it be? Who would you like to see? This person said, I would like to see Steen and Generico face John Morrison and The Miz. Well, I'm definitely going to select one of those tag teams. I'm going to definitely select John Morrison and The Miz. And I would like to see them against the Briscoes. I think that would be a thing that you could have good matches against each other. Not only that, I think the storyline involved in it could really help out because you got, the Briscoes, which are pretty much, their gimmick is they're, the Southern type guys, and then, you got John Morrison and Miz, which are the kind of in their gimmicks, they're like the Hollywood types, and I think that would be, a good clash of, personalities, and I think, both teams are very good. Briscoes are my favorite team. As far as the tag team, John Morrison and The Miz are one of those very few tag teams in the mainstream, especially with WWE, that's actually a good tag team, I would say. Not that many in recent years, hasn't been that many great tag teams in WWE, and I would say that's one of the very few. Next question, what do you think about Austin Aries joining Jimmy Jacobs? I was shocked at first, but I feel like it's time to go ahead and end their feud, and to give Tyler Black a good singles run. In my opinion, Tyler Black would make a damn good ROH World Champion. As far as this, obviously I haven't seen any of these shows with Jimmy Jacobs and Austin Aries kind of forming together. Well, they're not really joining together like being a tag team or anything like that, or saying, oh, we're done with... They're done with their feud, obviously, but they're kind of more in the way that Austin Aries is going in a deeper, darker path, and Jimmy Jacobs' character's always been a dark type character, and they're pretty much joining together and kind of joining forces in a weird way like that. It's not like they're really, joining together. I think that's one thing that some people get confused about. But the one thing that is good about, Tyler Black being gone from the Age of the Fall and no longer being with them and being with Jimmy Jacobs, Tyler Black now can go and have a great singles run and definitely be a future ROH World Champion, which I do see him being the one to defeat Nigel McGuinness, possibly at the Hammerstein Ballroom show that's in the mid-March, I think, or maybe the next pay-per-view taping after they do Cage Collision at the on January 31st of that pay-per-view tape, and I can see, because I would say Nigel McGuinness has had this title for so long, you're going to want to either, you don't have to have him lose the title at a pay-per-view taping, but you're going to have to include his title loss on pay-per-view, I would say. So I would say the best route, maybe the Hammerstein show coming in March, have that be a pay-per-view tape, which really kind of shocks me that, up at that point, that'll be their fourth Hammerstein show. And if that's not a pay-per-view taping, I don't know what they're waiting for, because I think that would be the best place to have a pay-per-view taping for Ring of Honor. It's at the Hammerstein Ballroom. Next, two questions are from Mr. Ricker 1989. What is your favorite Royal Rumble match of all time? My favorite Rumble match of all time is 2001. Not only is it my favorite Royal Rumble match, it's my favorite Royal Rumble event. Just loved everything on that whole entire event, everything from top to bottom. The Rumble match was excellent. The only Rumble match that comes close to 2001, or I would put up in that category as, a great Rumble that, could go against that is 1992, which was an excellent Royal Rumble as well. Do you see anyone beating Stone Cold's record of 3 Royal Rumble wins? And if so, who? Don't ever see anyone beating Austin's 3 Royal Rumble victories, because obviously that would mean they would have to win 4 Royal Rumbles. Now, I could possibly see some talent, tying Austin's 3 Royal Rumble victories. Possibly, someone like a Randy Orton or John Cena. Since Randy Orton and John Cena, they're obviously going to be the focal points of WWE, and definitely going to be talents that are going to be with the company 10 to 15 years down the line, unless, some obviously dramatic injury happens to them that they cannot wrestle anymore, which neither one does anything very risky in the ring, so they're obviously going to be with WWE for a long time to come. So those are the only 2 that I can see possibly tying them, and I never can see anyone defeating Austin's 3 Royal Rumble victories, but maybe it's someone tying it down the line. Next question is from Instant Classic G1. What 80s gimmick / star would still work as it then now? Basically, if a character in the 80s never happened in that time period, what will work for now? Now, I kind of got confused with this question. I kind of get the gist of what I think you're asking. Which I think what you're asking is what gimmick from nowadays would have worked back in the 80s, and what gimmick in the 80s would work today. I think that's kind of what you mean. As far as gimmicks that are out there now that could have worked back in the 80s, some of the gimmicks in TNA, like the Austin Star, that would have worked back in the 80s. Possibly that would have even worked back in the 90s. I don't think it was one of those gimmicks that would have worked for today, and that's the reason why it didn't work, in my opinion. And it kind of, it was one of those gimmicks that made, the wrestler perform and it kind of look idiotic. Something like, Jay Lethal's Macho Man impersonation. That might have worked back in the 80s or 90s. Even back in the 80s, maybe they would have done something where someone would have been with Macho Man or something, and they would have thought they were Macho Man. Some type of weird gimmick like that. That might have worked. Some of these gimmicks in TNA that are very cheesy for today probably would have worked back in the 80s. If not the 80s, they would have probably worked in the 90s, or at least got somewhere further than what they're doing now. As far as gimmicks from the 80s that would work today, not that many gimmicks from the 80s I think would work today. Ric Flair's styling and profiling, and pretty much thinking he's the greatest guy, God's gift to wrestling, and thinks he's the greatest. That will work. That's one of those gimmicks that always will work. Maybe a Dusty Rhodes type gimmick would still work to today, but not that many gimmicks from the 80s or those type of gimmicks will work nowadays, I would say. Next questions are from Rick Bottle Martell. I admit that I'm not a ROH fan. I'm just a massive loyal WWE fan. I've always been since 1987. I've watched very little Ring of Honor in 2003, but that's about it. But if you could recommend me an ROH match to watch that has everything in it, what match or matches would you recommend? Well, as far as matches that I think would get you hooked into Ring of Honor, or that I would definitely recommend, I would say, anything for a casual fan that wants to check out some Ring of Honor and check out maybe some stars that came from Ring of Honor and they're more familiar with now because of WWE or TNA, I would say, check out Joe versus Punk 2, Samoa Joe and CM Punk's classic 60-minute time limit draw they had there. That was an excellent match. Anything with Bryan Danielson versus Nigel McGuinness is always good. And as far as a show, what show would I recommend that could get you hooked into Ring of Honor? Supercard of Honor 3, I think, would be one of those type shows that definitely get you hooked into it. Even, Ring of Honor's recent pay-per-view, which I wouldn't call it, a classic or greatest show of all time or anything like that, but I think it had, a good pacing and 2 great main events that, if it's still available on pay-per-view, I would definitely recommend that, and now it gets you more into the current product of Ring of Honor. Even Supercard of Honor 3 would do that, and those are the stuff I would recommend, people to get into Ring of Honor. Check out, stuff like Supercard of Honor 3, any of the Death Before Dishonors are normally good. Just those are the type of stuff I would recommend. Or, check out some of the old Ring of Honor, like the Joe versus Kobashi, the Joe versus Punk series of matches, which I think a lot of casual fans would like seeing since they're, familiar with Joe and CM Punk more or less in TNA, and I think they would love to see them, in their early career in Ring of Honor. And next question is pretty much he gives his thoughts on some British talents. This is pretty much what it says. Thoughts on some of the current British talent of WWE today, like William Regal, Paul Burchill, D.H. Smith, Finlay, DJ Gabriel, Katie Lee, and obviously kayfabe-wise, Layla. And do you think that WWE needs a bit more British or English talent? I think that Regal is a great talker, a great worker, has great facial expression, he's funny, he's a great heel, and he's a tough son of a bitch. Is he world championship material? I'm also starting to like ECW's DJ Gabriel. Not the best gimmick in the world, but he has a unique style that I like. As far as these British talent, I think some of these guys need to get a better role than what they are getting in WWE. As far as William Regal, does he deserve the world title or is he world championship material? I don't really think so. He could be booked as world championship material, but I don't think WWE would ever try to do that. As far as my favorite British talent, which unfortunately due to wellness policy violations have kind of set him back as far as his WWE push, which is D.H. Smith. I would love to see him try to get his act together, and I would love to see him get utilized very well in WWE at some point. Paul Burchill's another talent that I think doesn't get the treated the way he should. Katie Lee, I think, is one of those women talents that her and Paul Burchill should have stayed on the Raw brand instead of going to ECW. That was completely idiotic for them to do. And DJ Gabriel, I haven't really seen much of him. I don't really watch ECW, so can't really comment on him either. And obviously Layla is kayfabe-wise playing a British talent with the whole William Regal thing. Next question is, Ric Flair has agreed to terms with WWE to induct Stone Cold Steve Austin into this year's Hall of Fame and has also agreed to be part of WrestleMania 25. What part do you think he will play at WrestleMania? Appearance, a last match, or something like that? Unfortunately, WWE has turned down the offer of Ric Flair. At least Vince McMahon doesn't want Ric Flair to induct Stone Cold Steve Austin. So it's pretty much either going to be Bret Hart, which is the big rumor of possibly inducting Stone Cold Steve Austin, maybe Vince McMahon himself, or Jim Ross inducting him. As far as Ric Flair, what he's probably going to do at WrestleMania, obviously with the whole Jericho and Mickey Rourke thing and the match they're going to have probably with each other at WrestleMania, Ric Flair is either going to be in the corner of Mickey Rourke or they'll have him be a special guest referee in the match. That'll be the role that he's obviously going to be playing at this year's WrestleMania. Next question is from Obscure1. This isn't the first time that Matt Hardy has turned on Jeff. Do you think that by doing this, WWE may try to do a Bret/Owen type feud? If memory serves me correctly, Owen turned on Bret at a Royal Rumble event. What are your thoughts on a feud of this much potential despite both the Hardys' promo skills? It definitely could be a very good feud. It has to be booked very well. And as far as their promo skills, Jeff Hardy is just Jeff Hardy. That's pretty much the best way to classify his promo skills. And Matt Hardy's not that bad. He can deliver sometimes on the mic, but sometimes I can see your point why he's not that good on the mic either. But since, they're both actually real-life brothers like the Bret and Owen feud from back in the day, you could definitely work it off of that, and that could be, adding a lot of heat to the feud. And I can definitely see this being a very good feud, and hopefully it does lead to something very good, which I'm hoping it will. Next question are two questions from ZMSAHS2012. ZMSAHS12. What are your thoughts about WWE? What are your thoughts about WWE No Way Out 2009 on February 15th, where both the World Heavyweight Title and the WWE title will be defended in 2 Elimination Chamber matches? Obviously, they did this last year at WrestleMania. It wasn't the title that were on the line. It was number 1 contendership for WrestleMania 24 title matches, and this is for the actual world titles here. I think it's a good thing. They just have to make sure they put in some good talent in there. It looks like so far the one for the Raw brand is pretty much going to be John Cena and pretty much some underdog type talent in that elimination chamber, and people you wouldn't wouldn't necessarily see being a world title picture, or like right now, with Kofi Kingston and I think Rey Mysterio qualifying in it as well. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. Hopefully they put a good amount of people in the SmackDown one, and they kind of help both of them seem a little different from each other. That's the thing they're really going to have to do. Next question is what are your thoughts on the main event at Against All Odds on February 8th, where the TNA World Title will be defended in a Fatal 4-Way style match involving Brother Ray, Brother Devon, Kurt Angle, and the current champion Sting. I think this is a terrible decision to do this. Now, I don't really hate the idea of having a Fatal 4-Way. You have, 2 guys from the front line and 2 guys from the main event Mafia in a Fatal 4-Way type match. That's not the problem I have with it. I just have a problem with it being Team 3D, being the guys pretty much being in there for the TNA front line. That's the idiotic part about this. It should have been, Samoa Joe, AJ Styles versus Sting versus Kurt Angle, which would have worked out a whole lot better than this, and I would actually be looking forward to it. Unlike this TNA title match, which is 2 back-to-back months that the TNA title match looks very, very weak, and that's the one thing. If your main event looks weak, you're already destined to not have an excellent pay-per-view, because you could have no matter what else on the event, but if your world title match or your main event of a pay-per-view is lackluster, then no one really cares about the event, and it's obviously not going to help pay-per-view buys when you got a terrible main event. Next question, there are 2 questions from the Wrestling Hero. Which Von Erich is your favorite? My favorite Von Erich is Kerry Von Erich, with Kevin Von Erich probably my second favorite. Should Taz be inducted into the Hall of Fame? This is one of those things I kind of have a split decision on this, whether I think he's worthy of being in the Hall of Fame or not, because obviously, he didn't do much in WWE, and he is a good talent, did do a lot of great stuff in ECW, but I don't think he's worthy of being in the WWE Hall of Fame, even though they have, some people in the Hall of Fame that you're like, why the hell is this person, Hall of Fame material? And I don't see them ever putting them in there. The only people from the original ECW that I could possibly see ever being inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame are probably Team 3D, aka the Dudley Boys, and RVD. That's pretty much the only people I can see from the original ECW ever being inducted into the Hall of Fame, and those are, kind of a stretch there anyway. I don't know if they would induct RVD, and obviously, Team 3D are in TNA right now, but sometime down the line, obviously, after they retire, I could see maybe Vince McMahon wanting to induct them, since they did have a lot of very good success in WWE. Next question is, it looks highly likely that Kurt Angle will leave TNA later this year. At this moment, Angle and AJ Styles are the reasons I watch Impact, so I see Kurt Angle as a huge loss unless they build new stars more effectively or get a big name in. What impact do you think losing Kurt Angle would have in TNA? Obviously, this is just a rumor, but definitely I would say it kind of looks like there is possibly at least a small chance, or not even maybe a small chance, probably a good chance that Kurt Angle might leave TNA in the month of September of this year. And obviously they're going to have to do something here. They're going to start having to push some, younger stars. They're going to have to, do something to fill the void of Kurt Angle leaving, or possibly get another big name in. That's pretty much the only way I can see, the only thing I can see helping is, you build some new stars, build Samoa Joe, and you build AJ Styles better than what you're doing. You do something, maybe bring Christopher Daniels and build him up very big. And, maybe unless you don't do that, you're going to have to get a big name. And I think the only big name that possibly could, be good for TNA, or at least, spark some interest is probably, someone like RVD. I think that would definitely fill the void of Kurt Angle being gone from TNA. Next questions are from King Smirch 333. How far do you see John Morrison, the Miz singles and tag careers going? Mainly Morrison's singles career. As far as Morrison, I can definitely see him being a singles, a big single star, and as far as I can see him definitely being a future world champion. As far as Miz, at best, mid-card or maybe upper mid-card, not world championship material. Next question, what do you think of Undertaker versus Steve Austin versus Shawn Michaels as a triple threat in their last match at WrestleMania 25, assuming WWE will end JBL and HBK's thing before WrestleMania? This would be a feud this would be a match, or, the triple threat I wouldn't like to see. If they end this JBL and Shawn Michaels feud at No Way Out or do something like that, then go ahead and, have Shawn Michaels versus Undertaker, which I think is the main thing a lot of wrestling fans would want to see, and especially people in Texas would want to see. Next question is from Pink Lemon Tree. Do you think that Matt Hardy will ever ascend to the main event level and capture one of the 2 main belts in WWE? As far as him gaining one of the world titles, as far as one of the big titles, I would love to see it happen. Unfortunately, I don't see it ever happening, though. Next question is from Oz TV Agent. Who are your top 5 favorite wrestlers in WWE, and also what are your thoughts on Undertaker's past, present, and future? As far as my top WWE talent, I didn't write this down, so this is pretty much off the top of my head. CM Punk, Evan Bourne, Randy Orton, Ted DiBiase, and last one of the people I'm going to like, John Cena. John Cena is just, a talent that I like seeing. As far as Undertaker's past, present, and future, Undertaker's one of those gimmicks and characters that has been around for so long, and he's always very good. He was good back in the day, good now, and as far as his future, I don't see him wrestling too much longer. But Undertaker's always one of those top favorites of probably everyone as far as a lot of WWE fans go, and is one of those very few gimmicks that has had some changes within it, but not too many dramatic changes unless you consider a lot of the different eras and everything of the whole dead man persona and everything. But it's one of those very few gimmicks that still is believable today and is still very marketable, which doesn't happen that often as far as a gimmick that's been around that long. WrestleMan813 what would be your dream match using wrestlers from ROH, TNA, WWE, and Japan? I would like to see Danielson versus Angle, Samoa Joe versus Nakamura, or Morishima. And I know London has left, but I would love to see Motor Machine Guns versus London Spanky. Well, I'm kind of doing this the way you kind of did with 3 matches. Obviously, the top singles match I want to see is obviously Danielson versus Angle, like I said earlier. As far as maybe like a U.S. talent versus Japanese talent, I would probably love to see. Trying to think of. CM Punk versus Kenta. That would probably be a match I would love to see. As far as maybe a tag team, if London and Spanky ever, formed back up or did something, if Spanky's gone from WWE at some point or another, I would love to see them versus the Briscoes. Next question is from Cool Glenn. What is your opinion on Talib Kweli, Kanye West, and Calypso? As far as Talib Kweli, definitely a fan of him. Makes very good music, very good conscious rap, and really do like him. As far as Kanye West, before his previous CD, I would say he was definitely a great artist. His first 3 CDs were very good, and he's a good producer as well. As far as Calypso, I like their first album. That's the only material that I would say that has been good from them. I kind of have to, at least say they're a good talent, or a good group, and I definitely have to like them a little, especially since they're from my state of Virginia, and they were good on that first album. Their first album I would almost consider somewhat of a kind of a classic, not 5 mics or anything, but I did enjoy their first album a lot. Next question is from 50 is my homie. What did you think of Kanye West's album 808s and Heartbreak? As far as this album, I did hear it mainly because one of my friends is a huge fan of this CD and likes it a lot. It's not my type of album, so I really can't say much about it. And I don't really like the whole audio tuner bullshit and that type of stuff, so I'm really not a fan of the album. Hopefully Kanye West's next album that he puts out isn't this type of material. Next question is from Dipset88. Do you think if Christian Cage comes back to WWE, will he be world champion before 2009 is out? As far as him being world champion by the end of this year, I couldn't see it happening. WWE could do something shocking and maybe do it, but I really highly doubt it will happen. But if they bring him back, give him a good push, I could see him maybe being a world champion at some point, maybe in mid 2009. I couldn't see him winning the world championship by the end of this year, though. Next question is from Jose31704. Do you think that the legacy with Orton as champion could be the most powerful faction since Evolution and possibly start gang warfare again in WWE? As far as, if Randy Orton becomes world champion and defeats John Cena at WrestleMania, definitely it could be a very, effective faction and definitely could be one of the bigger factions or one of the better factions since Evolution, you could have, Ted DiBiase and Cody Rhodes be tag champs. Personally, I would like to see a Ted DiBiase split from the Legacy. Not yet, but maybe by the end of 2009, have him split off as a singles competitor and start, slowly building him up as a mid-carder. And then in the future, I could definitely see Ted DiBiase becoming a world champion, but definitely could be one of the most effective or powerful stables since Evolution if they go the route of Orton defeating Cena at WrestleMania 25 and do something with Rhodes and DiBiase being tag champs, and maybe add one or two other people, which I think they should maybe do. I think like D.H. Smith would be a good fit to him. Another second generation wrestler. Maybe Natty Neidhart would be a good fit to it as well, to have like someone compete for the women's title. But as far as that, you don't want to make the group get too big, though, which is the problem with some factions. Some factions, they keep growing, they grow too big, like the NWO, obviously. That you see how that worked. It worked for the time being, but then after you add so many people, it was like, oh god, this is starting to get ridiculous. Then the next question is from BTJ Destroyer. I have heard rumors that RVD is returning to WWE. What do you think? These are just rumors. He's not returning to WWE. Unfortunately, I would like to see him back in WWE right now. He's helping out his wife. His wife is fighting cancer, so until she is able to conquer cancer, don't expect RVD to return full-time to wrestling. And definitely hope his wife does get better, and I would love to see RVD sometime return to wrestling, especially from the Rumble. You saw how many fans will love to see him back as far as the reaction that he got. The next question: if Cage returns, what brand do you predict he will be on, and who would he take on first? Jericho, Edge, Cena, team up with Jericho, or team up with Edge? As far as what brand I predict him to go on, I definitely still see him going on the SmackDown brand, and I can see them kind of doing some type of feud where, it'd be not really, them kind of teaming up against each other. There'll be kind of them teaming up. You'll see Jeff Hardy and Christian teaming up, and maybe Matt Hardy and Edge teaming up, where you have the brothers, switch roles. And I think you could do something like that. It wouldn't be a WrestleMania match, but it'd be kind of like something that'd be definitely interesting to see. Hardy on one side, Hardy on the other, and then Edge and Christian, the kayfabe brothers. Being against each other. I think you possibly could go that route if you want Christian to return as a face, or have him just be maybe a person that Matt Hardy wanted. Matt Hardy pretty much told Christian to do all these attacks and do something like that, kind of like the way they did with Rikishi, Triple H, with the whole Austin getting run over, where Triple H was the person that orchestrated it, but didn't really do the acts. He had someone else do it. They might go the route like that. And that's it for this Q&A. I know this was a pretty long Q&A. Hopefully anyone that's got to this point, hopefully you enjoyed. And just send in your questions through a comment on my channel, through a personal message, or a comment on this video. All right, peace.